So here's the real question. How do dentists like you, who aren't willing to let insurance dictate how you will run your practice, who want to create incredibly profitable practices without sacrificing your time or sanity, how do you create the strategies to ensure your practice not only survives but thrives in the 21st century? That's the blaring question, and Dr. Steve Schalintz is here to provide the answers. Welcome to Dental Practice Freedom Radio.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dr. Steve Schalintz, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Dental Practice Freedom Radio, and this is episode number 93. Some housekeeping items. First and foremost, I'm about to do some interviews, but I made it a self-rule, so fascinating. I've had a lot of people that I actually wanted to bring on this podcast that I think would be consistent with what I talk about. But I made it a rule to myself, and I told this person, I said, listen, I'm going to do an interview, and you're going to be one of the first people I interview and bring on. But I wanted to get to 100 episodes first before I started to do that. And I said, there's a very specific reason. Like, if you're listening to this podcast, and you've been listening to this podcast for the last year and a half, you probably know what I'm talking about. You understand a little bit more about what I do, and you understand why I do what I do in my practice and then also my coaching business. And so I don't want to say I'm like building a tribe, but I want to make sure that the listeners to the podcast right now understand what I'm all about and why I'm about it. And so that's a housekeeping item. So you're going to be seeing some interviews pretty soon. I'm at 93, so you only have to listen to me 7 more times by myself, and then I'll do some interviews. But the majority of the podcast is still going to be me talking about things that I'm learning as I have my practice and my coaching business and things that I'm working on. And that's what this episode is going to be about. It's going to be about minimal viable product. And one of the things that I've been really, really working hard on is making sure that the dentists that I work with really get value out of the programs that I teach them. So I am in the process right now of really building out Dental Sales Secrets. It started with this little tiny coaching platform, and it's grown to over 40 or 50 hours of content now. It has 63 members in the platform, and it's going to continue to grow and develop. And I was thinking about this because I'm always looking at ways in my coaching business how to better deliver my services. And my niche, who am I serving? What kind of dentist am I serving? And I talked about that a little bit before on some previous podcast episodes, so I don't want to bring that up again. But I was thinking about the minimal viable product and how this pertains not just to my coaching business, but also my dental practice. And it was fascinating because I was watching a course on how to create courses. And it was kind of like that book by Mortimer Adler, How to Read a Book. You know, you're reading a book on how to read a book, but there's some very specific things that you have to do when you're creating courses for other people that make the courses actually effective. One is that there has to be concepts that are introduced that are going to help that specific person increase their business in some way, right? So if I had a theoretical only program for dentists, what would happen is they go, well, that sounds great, but they can't take action on it, so they don't get results, and they're not going to like the program over the time period. They might like it when they start, but if there's nothing that's going to help them actually get results in their business or their office, wherever they're at, they might enjoy going through it, but they're not necessarily going to get a result. So I didn't want that. Second was I wanted to make sure that the content is relevant to the dentist that I'm serving. And so you actually create the program as the dentists are going through it. There's a common misconception that as a program, right, you have everything laid out and then you sell it. And the reality is you might have a contextual framework of what you want to teach somebody, but you're not going to know for sure what kind of material they actually need until they go through it and they tell you. So the idea of a minimum viable product I thought was fascinating when it comes to building out courses, because what you want is to get a specific end result. So for me, if a dentist is coming to me, they're a comprehensive dentist, and they've gotten some type of technical training. I don't even care what kind of technical training it is, but something technical that they can deliver in their office that is going to allow them to do services at a not a premium price, but they're going to be able to offer services that most dentists wouldn't. I want to see how they can put that into practice more efficiently with a proven case acceptance process that's going to get them better results. So that's my goal. So my goal really honestly is I think you should increase your profitability in your practice by 25% a year without doing anything other than this course, right? All internal referrals, all internal generation, doing more of the dentistry you already have to do, no marketing, no nothing. Now, there's components to my course that's talking about marketing, but it's not like marketing where you're actually spending dollars on marketing, right? I'm a big believer that right now dentists are chasing the wrong rabbit hole. They're going down external marketing and trying to get more new patients. And the reality is, I don't care if you have 100 new patients a month, if you're not able to actually monetize what you're doing for those patients and have those patients become consistent patients that refer other people to you, you're throwing dollars to get dollars on the front end with no dollars on the back end. So it makes no sense, but that's where a lot of dentists are spending their money right now. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. At some point, you're going to have to do SEO. You're going to have to do social media campaigns at some level. But again, it goes back to the messaging and how are you projecting the messaging and all this stuff, right? So when I was going through this course, we talked about minimum viable product, and it's actually something that I did when I started with Dental Sales Secrets, is what is the bare essentials that you need to get somebody to increase their profitability by 25% doing more comprehensive dentistry? Like that's the parameters in which I worked from. And then I created a course that was small, and I took dentists through it, and it was like, you need these essentials. And then as I was going, they would tell me more information. I'd add more to the course, and all of a sudden the course morphed. But it morphed after I started with the minimal viable product. Now, what's interesting is you do the same thing actually in your dental practice, and the dental practices that are very, very successful delivering more comprehensive style care did the exact same thing. They say, how do I get a patient from A to Z in accepting more comprehensive care with a minimum viable product? So whatever it is I do, if I'm doing full mouth rehabilitations, if I'm doing implants, as treatment plans are variable, but there's usually kind of like a set protocol that you want to follow to get your patients from completely diseased to completely healthy. And yet the more you follow that minimum viable delivery system, minimal viable product, the more successful you'll be. And then you'll figure out what your patients need, where their sticking points are, how to work around that. And the process will morph, but you didn't start with that morph process. See, what stops most dentists or coaches or consultants or any of these things is we want to make everything that we do perfect before we launch it, right? Like the course has to be perfect. Our new patient process has to be perfect. Our team engagement has to be perfect before we do anything. And that stops so many people that we never are successful. Like the way that I do my new patient process now versus 3 years ago is a night and day difference. It's not even close, but the concepts and the tenets are exactly the same. The core philosophy is the same, but how I'm delivering it is totally different. And that only would happen after a continual evolution of the process. Now, if I knew how to get where I'm at now 3 years ago, but I didn't go through trial and error, I never would have got to the point. I don't know, that's kind of confusing, but you got to take one step and go with it. So you actually have to lay out in your process, if you're a dentist listening to this, in your process, you have a new patient process that will be more effective. And if you don't know what that is, you have to reach out to me. If you are getting patients in, but they're not accepting comprehensive care, like there's something going on in the process that doesn't allow them to ask for more complete dentistry. There's something breaking down there. But if you try to get it perfect before you start, you will never get there. And even the dentists that I work with, when you first start, they might have gotten all this information, but they haven't put it together in a consistent and coherent manner. And so what happens is they go, well, I know all this stuff. And then I go, okay, well, if you know all of it and patients aren't saying yes, I want you to videotape what it is you're doing and then send it to me. I want to look at what you're doing. And you find very early on, it's like, wow, you missed the greeting. And now you're wondering why patients aren't saying yes. You missed an essential step that you have to have in order for them to say yes 2 visits later. So you start with a minimum viable product, which is what are we trying to deliver to our patients? Who are our ideal patients? How are we going to deliver our ideal service? You lay out a template, and then you start to work on one individual piece, see how it works, and then you go on to the next step, and then you go on to the next step, and you go on to the next step. And what happens is your process will evolve, but you don't get overwhelmed. That's the key. I'm running Facebook ads right now, and what's interesting is I'm starting to do more of a campaign for Dental Sales Secrets, and I've tested out the model, and I know it works, and my clients, my dentists, my clients are getting results. And I said, okay, I'm ready for the next step now, which is scaling this, putting ad spend behind it. And the same thing that happened in my program is what happens with ads. I look at where the system breaks down. So are they seeing the ad? Are they clicking on the ad? Are they opting into the ad? Are they watching the video? Are they watching the video then scheduling a call? If they're scheduling a call, are they actually getting onto my schedule? If they get onto my schedule, am I able to convert them into clients? And I go each step, and if one of those systems breaks down, I'll be able to identify it. But I'm not going to even worry about my sales script right now if nobody's seeing my ad, right? And I'm not going to worry about closing them if nobody's going from video to schedule. It's sequential. So you need to have an outline, and then you work on one individual piece at a time. And I don't care. This is business 101. It doesn't matter if it's a dental practice or a consulting firm. You have to get a minimum viable product. What's the process? And then work on each specific element until you're a master at it. And that is where most people miss. They don't have a minimal viable product. They don't have a minimal viable delivery service in their practice. They don't know what their system is. They're trying to be all things to all people. They've got a system that's convoluted. Just the other day when I was doing a team workshop, a Dental Sales Secrets team workshop, I go out to Nashville, and this is a great office. I've been working with them, and if she's listening to this podcast, you have a great team, phenomenal stuff. But the number one breakdown was they don't know how to schedule patients to get them into the new patient process to deliver what it is they know how to do. That was the main sticking point. So it doesn't matter necessarily how much they work on converting the patients once they're there into full therapy if they're not actually getting to the office because they're not being screened right to get them to the right appointment. Does that make sense? So you literally work on one piece at a time, and you'll find where the bottleneck is in your practice. You'll find what the bottleneck is in your system, and then you can address it. You can figure out how to address it. But until you figure out the bottleneck, you're not going to go anywhere. And it's actually funny, the dentist that I did the team workshop for, her husband is an IT guy, and it was exactly what I'm talking about. They said there was a phone that wasn't working, and they had to take the wire, and each junction they had to figure out, okay, it was fine here, it was fine here, it was fine here, it was fine here. What they found at the end of it, it wasn't the wire at all, it wasn't the system, it was the phone itself was not working. They would have only been able to figure that out with certainty by testing each specific element till they got to the phone. And then they figured out the phone is not working. But if they didn't do it that way and they just started guessing, they'd be randomly picking spot, and then they go to this spot, and then they'd never really know what's actually going on in the system. You have to think the same way in your practice. What are we delivering? What are the bottlenecks? What are the limits? How do we test this? And then how do we put a process in place to get rid of that bottleneck so we can do more of what we are meant to do? So hopefully you got value out of this one. I put up a new training for Dental Sales Secrets and the process that I take my clients through. So I would love for you to check that out if you're not working with me. Yes, this is a shameless plug, but I really do feel that where we're at right now, I'm able to help a lot of dentists. We've been able to kind of get a system in place that helps me impact more dentists, get my message out, what I think comprehensive dentistry should look like and how you can put it in your practice to make it more successful, whether you're trying to transition out of PPOs, whether you're completely fee-for-service or out of a network right now. This process works for, I wouldn't say it works for every dentist because it doesn't work for every dentist, but it does work for select dentists that are looking to decrease insurance involvement. You can always hop on a call with me. At the end of that training, there's going to be an option to schedule a call with me, and we'll see if it's a good fit. So I just wanted to let you guys know that there's a new link in the bio that you're going to be able to click on and get some free training. It's about a 20-minute video about what I'm doing in my practice, how it's unique, how it's different, and if it's something that you want to try to do in your own practice, I encourage you to reach out to me. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Ratings and reviews are fantastic. I am so excited to announce that the last month, our podcast listens, and this is all thanks to you guys, literally quadrupled. It quadrupled in number of downloads, which is phenomenal. And so I want to keep that momentum up. If you know colleagues or clients or whoever you're working with that you think would benefit from this podcast, I'd love for them to listen to it as well. And if not, have a great, it's Cinco de Mayo, and it's also my mom's birthday. So that's fantastic. And Mom, if you're listening to this, happy birthday. And I don't know why you'd be listening to this, but I know sometimes you actually listen to this podcast. So I always get one download every month, no matter what, and it's from my mom. So appreciate that. And thank you guys so much. And I'll see you at the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode on Dental Practice Freedom Radio with Dr. Steve Schlintz. We'll see you on the next episode.